Bombshell tonight, TV and movie star Hayden Panettiere, neighbor, hears crying and screaming before the star's death. This, as we learn, her HOA Homeowners Association had actually put up posters, notices to block her boyfriend from getting in the building. Why? We also learned tonight, according to reports, that the boyfriend actually pawned Hayden's belongings before her death. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
Yeah, Hayden Panettiere is a child actress who went on to great success. She detailed her substance abuse issues.
Sadly, Hayden was found unresponsive on Sunday in an apartment in Greenville, South Carolina.
She really told the world who she was beyond the superstar, the actress that we all thought we loved.
Everyone in Centers on for cardiac arrest. That's the Millwall, 701 Ainsley Bridge Road, apartment minute 29 responding.
Ainsley Bridge Road, overdose, CPR is in progress.
It was yesterday afternoon, and just a bunch of commotion in the hallway. The halls are pretty hollow, so noise echoes throughout. And I had just heard about someone collapsing. And then afterwards, there was talk about cardiac arrest. I can't confirm any of that. That's just what I've heard. Just lots of commotion.
That from our friends at WYFF. Bombshells tonight in the investigation into the TV and movie star Hayden Panettiere's death. We're learning more and more, and all of it is very, very unsettling, to say the least. Let me remind everyone, no one has been charged. No one has been named a person of interest tonight. Anyway, we are now learning more about the alleged use of Narcan. When was it used? Who used it? How can you tell from looking at Hayden Panettiere's body? Was it actually administered?
His brother gave us a statement that he texted Brian and Hayden on that Sunday morning, last Sunday, and didn't get a response, went to this Airbnb where they were, and then found Brian, who had just woken up, and Hayden laying in a bed. And Brian then administered Narcan to her.
Okay, that's our friend Harvey Levin over at TMZ, and I need to hear that one more time because, listen to me, I've tried a lot of cases, and every fact can prove something. I heard something very disturbing. Listen to Harvey Levin.
His brother gave us a statement that he texted Brian and Hayden on that Sunday morning, last Sunday, and didn't get a response, went to this Airbnb where they were, and then found Brian, who had just woken up, and Hayden laying in a bed. And Brian then administered Narcan to her.
Okay, straight out to Rob Shooter joining us, author of a brand new book, Queen Elizabeth III, The New American House of Windsor. Shooter, my interest is always piqued, to put it mildly, when I hear somebody say, I woke up and she was dead.
Yeah, absolutely. It's these details, Nancy, that are ultimately going to point us in the right direction here. You're so right. Just one detail can change everything. I listened to that statement from Harvey twice too, because there's a lot of stuff in there and a lot of it doesn't add up. Initially, we were told that she was found in a chair. Now we're being told that she was in the bed. And so I want these people to keep talking to TMZ, to keep talking to the media, to keep talking to the press, because they are going to reveal everything without even knowing they're doing so.
Derek Smith joining me, high-profile criminal defense attorney out of Ohio. Did you hear what Shooter just said? I mean, he's a PR guru. He's handled them all. Diddy, Brittany, it goes on and on and on. They can't stop talking. They can't stop talking tonight. No charges, no POI, person of interest. But Derek, how many interviews are these people going to give? And they're inconsistent. Did you hear Shooter? Shooter already pointed out that in one statement, she's dead in a chair. Another statement, oh, I woke up, she's dead beside me. I didn't know. What? Keep talking. Just keep that camera rolling, Derek.
Yeah, Nancy, I tell my clients, unfortunately, sometimes after the fact, that self-snitching doesn't really help them. I understand that they want to get their story out there too. They don't want to be villainized. They don't want to look like anything is because of them. However, just like your previous guest just said, you get them talking, they're going to be inconsistent, especially if the truth is something they're trying to evade. So I generally tell my clients, you know what, let's come into the office, talk with me first before you talk to any media, any law enforcement, anything like that, because you could maybe inadvertently say things that could wind you up into the jail cell, Nancy, as you well know.
Dave Mack joining me, Crime Stories investigative reporter. Dave, there are several inconsistencies, right? What's the story on the Narcan? Who, what, where, why, when?
What we're actually being told is what Zach Hickerson, the brother of Brian Hickerson, Hayden's on and off again boyfriend, that the Narcan was found on the bed, and that according to Zach, his brother Brian had used the Narcan on Hayden. Now, Narcan is an inhaler that's inhaled through the nostrils, Nancy. And according to Brian Hickerson's brother, Zach said that it was Brian who was administering the Narcan to Hayden.
Wait, when you say boyfriend, are you talking about this boyfriend?
I saw her leaving on a gurney. Brian was right next to her, and I asked her if she was okay. And it looked to me that she, had suffered some type of trauma that, looked to be battering. And it was clear she was terrified.
My biggest thing about domestic violence is I don't think it is taught early enough in life. Never in my life did I ever get taught what domestic violence was, right? Maybe if I did at an early age, maybe I wouldn't have done what I did. I mean, I went into such a dark place, man. Drugs, alcohol, abuse. Good God Almighty. She's 5'2" on paper, 4'11" in real life. I mean, come on. Terrible thing I did to her, but she's love of the life. So you never know what happens.
Is he high? That from our friends at Inside Edition and TMZ. Okay, please throw some water on me. Wake me up, Jackie, because I think I passed out. I think I blacked out right there. Let me hear that first part one more time.
My biggest thing about domestic violence is I don't think it is taught early enough in life. Never in my life did I ever get taught what domestic violence was, right? Maybe if I did at an early age, maybe I wouldn't have done what I did.
That's from TMZ. I'm almost speechless. Dr. Bethany Marshall, please help me. Dr. Bethany Marshall, renowned psychoanalyst out of the LA jurisdiction. She's on Hulu. She's on Bravo. She's on Peacock. New podcast, On the Couch with Dr. Bethany Marshall, author of Deal Breakers. Dr. Bethany, did you hear that? If somebody had told me what domestic violence was, I wouldn't have beat the out of her. Really? It's when you beat somebody. That's domestic violence.
Well, first of all, you're right.
Did you hear that? Why
Yes,
isn't
I
anybody
did.
upset?
Yeah.
She's dead. That boyfriend wakes up in the bed and goes, oh, she's dead. How can that happen? And it's the same boyfriend that admits he beat her to smithereens. She got taken out on a gurney.
What he says is, if somebody had told me about domestic violence, he's trying to distance himself from domestic violence, as if he didn't do it. But then later he goes on to admit
Why
by
do
saying
you even
something
keep
like,
saying that, Bethany? Why do you keep calling it domestic violence? That's certainly putting perfume on the pig, right? Well, when people say domestic homicide, domestic, it sounds like a Hallmark movie. Domestic. I think of the kitchen table and good smells from supper and a little family sitting around the table holding hands like on the Waltons saying their prayer before dinner. That's not what this is. I do like one thing you said, the distancing. If somebody told me about domestic violence, maybe domestic violence wouldn't have happened. It's not, domestic violence isn't doing it. He did it.
he did it. He beat her. He hurt her. He administered opioids to her. But then later on in that interview, where he's clearly high, he does say, well, maybe I did it. And did you see the look on the interviewer's face? I mean, she's just giving him the side eye there, shocked at how high he is.
I was coming down in the elevator and heard those two in a screaming match in the garage. And she was just kept saying, please, Brian, please stop. I myself called the sheriff's office a number of times.
From our friends at Extra. Now, I want to be very clear. No one's been charged. No one has named a person of interest. To special guest joining us tonight, Eileen Reslin. She is the senior Showbiz Exclusives investigative reporter for Daily Mail, one of the largest websites in the world. Eileen, on the story from the very beginning. Eileen, thank you for being with us. A beating is not the COD that we know of, cause of death. What do we know about Hayden Panettiere, who's leaving behind a daughter without a mother? What do we know about the circumstances surrounding her death, Eileen?
Well, I'm really glad you actually mentioned her daughter, because that is actually part of the reason that Brian became involved in her life. He found her in a very vulnerable state. And now what we know about her death is, well, there's been obviously an apparent overdose is what has been reported, and there was Narcan distributed. What's very interesting, I want to highlight a report that my colleague Dana Kennedy did for the Daily Mail exclusively. She spoke to Leslie Vogel, Hayden Panettiere's mother, who has had conversations with the police, who have informed her about what Brian has also told the police about what happened before Zach got there to the apartment. Now, this is very interesting, Nancy. He claimed, Brian reportedly told police that at 10:30 that Sunday before Hayden died, that she was doing her makeup, and it was seemingly like any other day. They were supposed to meet up with Zach. Then Zach is unable to make contact with them, and Brian steps out to go and get something. Now, what that something is unclear. We don't know, and it hasn't been disclosed by the police. And then Brian returns to the apartment, and he somehow, we don't even know if he interacted with Hayden or not. Presumably he did. It was close quarters. And then they both somehow fall asleep for a nap. So there's really big gaps in that story, because when he comes back from that errand run, what happened there? Did they have a conversation? Did they do some drugs together? That information we don't know yet.
To Dr. William Maroney. He is a renowned medical examiner, a toxicologist, a pathologist. He is an opioid treatment expert. He is the author of American Narcan. And not only that, Maroney, while being a medical examiner, the chief medical examiner, puts his money where his mouth is and created a mobile opioid treatment facility. Dr. William Maroney, you have theories on the case tonight. It's not a case. It is the death of a beautiful young movie and TV star leaving behind a daughter without a mother. What is your analysis so far?
It's quite clear. It follows the time path of heroin, fentanyl, or opiate use. You're up early, you're getting ready, and then you take a nap. No, that's falling out. They probably used together, and she might have got more than him, and he woke up and she didn't. That happens all the time. It sounds like an opiate use, somebody with substance use disorder and a partner follow this timeline. He's bigger, whatever they snort, whatever they smoke, whatever they inject. They said there was no trauma after the autopsy, but the timeline fits opiate use. And then why else do you have this? Why do you have this if that's not an opiate use? Narcan is only going to work when you're around opiates. If you're using opiates, this is what saves your life if something goes wrong.
Well, why didn't it work?
Well, there are reasons. Polypharmacy is the number one reason why it won't work, because the Valium, the Xanax, the cocaine, the methamphetamine, barbiturates, ketamine, alcohol, they prevent it because they're much stronger and it's not going to reverse them. The second most important reason why it won't work is it's given too late. Circulation stops, the heart stops, breathing stops. It's not going to go anywhere. You blow this up your nose, it's
Wait,
not going to.
Are you saying the Narcan was administered after circulation and respiration had stopped? What do you mean by that?
That what I mean is you need to have it go in your nose, get in your blood, and then go to your brain. If you don't get it in time, it's not going to work because it has to transfer to your brain. And there was no circulation. That's why it wouldn't work. There was no
Why are you saying that?
Up the nose.
Put him up. Why are you saying there's no circulation? Do you mean she was dead?
Yes.
Speak English,
that's
man.
Exactly what I mean. She was dead, and this whole thing was a drama. That's what I think.
Okay, wait a minute. What do you mean by she was dead and this whole thing was a drama?
You use opiates and you fall out, you get sleep, you wake up, and somebody else is dead, but you're alive, and you have to do something, and the procedure, the timeline doesn't fit that she was savable. She was not savable.
How is Narcan supposed to work? It did not work. It did not save Hayden Panettiere's life. How is it supposed to work? You firmly believe it was administered after she's dead. Well, that's...
Yes.
I might as well administer it to that phone right there.
Yeah, it would be the same thing. Here's what you have to do. Narcan works all the time, but you have to get it in your nose, and it gets absorbed into your blood, and then it goes to your brain, and it tells the brain, you stop breathing. Please start breathing. You have to go in here to start breathing. It puts the heroin off. It puts the fentanyl off. It puts the OxyContin off. It pushes it off. That's how it works. And then the brain sends signals to start breathing again.
So let me understand. You're stating that you believe the Narcan was administered after she's dead. Now, okay, hold on. Rob Shooter joining me, a PR guru who is familiar with Hayden Panettiere, author of a new book, Queen Elizabeth III, The New American House of Windsor. Shooter, you heard Eileen Reslin from the Daily Mail describe inconsistencies in the various statements. We already know that in one story, she was dead in a chair. In another story, he wakes up, oops, she's dead. I have no idea. I'm just sleeping next to a corpse. I don't know what happened. Can I tell you that's not that uncommon that I hear that? There are many inconsistencies. What about the inconsistency regarding the brother, her doing her makeup at 10:30, the boyfriend leaves? Did he leave to get Narcan then? Was she already dead? What more can you tell me, Shooter?
Yeah, these inconsistencies are everything, Nancy. And as long as they keep talking, we're going to get more. Why would you go out and get Narcan if you didn't need it in the moment? Was this preventative? Were they planning to do drugs that day, or 3 of them, or 2 of them? And that's why they wanted the Narcan. There's a ton of questions, but what I do know is that the cameras have been seized around that apartment complex. So sources are telling me that the police have taken all that footage. So they'll be able to see exactly who left, what time they left, what time they returned, and if they did go to a pharmacy, if they did go to a CVS to pick up Narcan, that will be on the cameras too. And so they can say whatever they want at the moment. Let them keep saying it. The evidence is what's going to tell us what really happened, and that evidence is going to be cameras, it's going to be cell phones, it's going to be electronic communications. I'm told that the police know a lot more than we do, and they're just not saying at the moment. That's not that unusual, Nancy. What people say to the press is often very different than what they say to the police. The police already have a very good idea what happened inside that apartment.
You just hate it. You're the veteran trial lawyer, the criminal defense attorney at dwsmithlegal.com. When your client gives one story, then gives another story, I mean, most people remember the last time they saw a dead body. It doesn't move on its own anyway. But when you find out there's video surveillance at that drugstore, at that luxury residence where they were, I mean, there's video.
The first thing I'm doing, Nancy, is going to go into those pharmacies trying to get that video, because if we're in a situation like this where a client of mine may be a suspect in a homicide or an accidental death, and he was actually doing something to prevent that, like he wakes up and realizes his partner is struggling to breathe or having some kind of reaction, he rushes out to go get Narcan, to go get something to help her. But then unfortunately, when he gets there, it's just a little too late and she doesn't survive. That could be the situation we're looking at now. Yes, they're trying to establish a motive for this guy. Yeah, he was a boyfriend, a partner. He hurt her. He hit her. He was domestic violence to her. Doesn't mean he's a killer. Doesn't mean he wants her dead. Yes, he may want to keep her to himself, be a possessive type boyfriend. But he wants her to be alive. He's going to the drugstore to get some Narcan to save her life.
Okay, all of this is discussion based on inconsistencies we are learning about. This boyfriend has not been charged. He is not a suspect. He's not even a person of interest. But I do find it interesting that the surveillance cameras have been seized by police. Why? Dr. William Maroney, renowned medical examiner, I can't stress that enough, toxicologist, very important in this case, pathologist, opioid expert, author of American Narcan. He's devoted his life to his family and fighting opioid addiction. Dr. Maroney, I want you to weigh in. Your knowledge is far more vast than my questions can encompass, but I also want to know, in an autopsy, can you tell if Narcan was administered? Since it's inhaled, can you even find that out in autopsy?
There's two things you can do. The first thing is standard toxicology when you test the blood. If there's absolutely no naloxone is the active medicine in this, then it really wasn't given in time. And the second thing you can do is swab the nose. You swab it and then you send it off. These are the first test. The general toxicology is what everybody does. Every single medical examiner, every single department will do the toxicology. One of the reasons why I think they brought in the DEA was because they're going above and beyond local law enforcement. If you take a swab and you go up the nose like we did in COVID, instead of looking for a virus, you look for naloxone, then you'll know if it was given.
So I think what you just said is yes. Dr. Maroney, did you just mention DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency? What?
Yes. The reason why Greenville Police is reaching out for federal resources with the DEA is when they find what they find in the bag or the drugs or the toxicology, they're going to go for homicide, because when you supply something to somebody and they die, that's homicide, not an accident.
So if the autopsy is done correctly and the Q-tip, the long Q-tip like we used in COVID, is stuck up the nose and swabbed, you will find traces, correct?
Yes.
Of Narcan.
But if she was dead, it will not have been absorbed, and it'll sit there. So that creates the timeline. It helps you say, now you don't know when, but if it's in her blood and in her nose, then she would have got it in time. But if it's not in her blood and it's only in her
I need to ask him a
nose,
question.
that is
Maroney.
Yes.
This is very, very confusing. I got to figure out if the Narcan is in her blood, then it was administered correctly. If it's
Because
just in her nose, that means he stuck it up and it just sat there and she never absorbed it because she's already dead.
Because she's already dead. That's if you find it in the nose and it's not in her blood, that's clearly exactly what.
Wait, Maroney, wait. Don't lose your thought because I really want to hear it. To Eileen Reslin joining us, senior showbiz exclusive investigative reporter, Daily Mail. What is the boyfriend's story? Because when I smell a lie, I'm digging in. I've got a bite of his ankle, and I am not letting go. What is he saying? When is he saying he administered Narcan?
He hasn't released a statement yet saying whether he administered the Narcan or not. That was the brother, Zach, who claimed that he did. Right now, he's lawyered up, Brian. His lawyer is saying that let's let the investigation play out. Let's not make any judgments yet. So he's already in defense mode in that sense. But what we know about him is that he is a criminal. I mean, he abused Hayden. That was well documented in Hayden's biography. He's been convicted. He pleaded no contest in 2021. And what's really interesting, Nancy, is that just the week prior to Hayden passing away, he actually put in a request with the court to have his charges expunged. And the judge actually denied it because he said, I'm not allowing that to be expunged because you've continued to be high. And they actually pointed out to that TMZ interview that you played earlier that showed that he was not in a good state. So why would they expunge the charges in that case? And that what the judge decided was decided just 3 days before Hayden died. So I think the timing of all of that is all very interesting.
His brother gave us a statement that he texted Brian and Hayden on that Sunday morning, last Sunday, and didn't get a response, went to this Airbnb where they were, and then found Brian, who had just woken up, and Hayden laying in a bed. And Brian then administered Narcan to her.
Okay, the brother says he arrives. He finds Brian, who had just woken up, and Hayden still laying in a bed, and Brian then administered Narcan to her. Whether Narcan is in her blood or just in her nose, highly critical. Who can tell me about the boyfriend who was not a suspect or person of interest tonight, pawning Hayden's items, her belongings, before her death? Dave Mack, Crime Stories, can you tell me about that?
Yes, Nancy. Hayden's estranged mother, Leslie Vogel, says that Leslie came out to L.A. about a year ago to help Hayden get through a serious health issue, and claiming that Hayden was suffering from some unexplained pain in her lower back. And it was at that point where Leslie Vogel says that Brian Hickerson had emotionally and physically damaged Hayden Panettiere for years, and she was depleted in every way, financially, emotionally, physically, and that Brian Hickerson pawned items of Hayden Panettiere to get cash.
Okay, Derek Smith joining us, criminal defense attorney. Derek, again, he is not named a suspect in this case. That's not a good look, to just admit that you beat her repeatedly.
No, I mean, yeah, it doesn't look good, but it doesn't point to, again, a motive I mean, you were talking about doing drugs together, and like you just said in that last segment, she was financially drained. Maybe they owed money. Maybe she owed money to him, and she said, "Hey, pawn my stuff, get your money back." Or they needed more money to go get more supply. They needed to resupply,
okay.
so she sent him along. Go pawn my stuff. Go
Okay,
get some
you
money.
just
pay back
run
these
with
people.
that bone that
Hey.
she owed him money.
Well, she's
Dr.
financially
Bethany,
depleted.
could you help Derek Smith, please? Dr. Bethany.
The likelihood is he stalked her for a long, long time because he wanted her money. He did file for bankruptcy in 2022. And what happens when people want to commit financial fraud on another individual is that they will put that person in a vulnerable state so that that person cannot complain. So my theory, I've never talked to Brian Hickerson, but my theory is that he continued to re-addict her, knowing that that would take away her awareness of what he was siphoning away. And I think this is what's going to come out in any kind of report, an investigation, is what other ways was he having access to her money? Right?
Dr. Bethany, do you know one of the things the boyfriend pawned was her vintage guitar? That probably meant something to her, sentimentally.
You know, people who commit financial fraud, they also hate their victims, okay? They feel that the victims have it coming to them. Nancy, he wasn't just a boyfriend, he stalked her. Let's just be clear. He stalked her, he beat her, he took her money, and as you're saying, pointing out, he pawned her vintage guitar. And what does it mean when you pawn something? When you pawn something, you're desperate for cash right away. You're going to give it to the pawn shop for pennies on the dollar. And this is one of the things that underlies addiction, is the need to get that fix right away. Now, one other layer to all of this is that Zach went to church that morning. Then he says that they were unresponsive when he tried to call them. They were supposed to go to lunch and then indoor golfing. He says that Brian was waking up, but then he says that he was administering Narcan. So both can't be true. And it's very unusual for both people to use, one person to fall out, as Dr. Maroney said, and then the other one just magically wakes up just in time to save the victim.
I mean, it was, who wants to read something about themselves like that, right? But, you know, you got to be vulnerable. And, you know, I did it. So, you know.
Wait a minute. This is a brawl outside of a very fancy hotel
Sunset
in Los
Marquee,
Angeles.
man. It's famous.
And that person there in the white sweater, that is Hayden Panettiere in the middle of a just crazy brawl that went down last night that started in the bar at this hotel.
You see, that's Brian in the white sweater who just got hit. Now someone's on top of him, and Hayden isn't walking away from this. She is right there trying to pull people off of Brian. She gets knocked over. This is crazy. And
at one point in that,
bedlam.
guys, it looks like she even took a foot to the face, too. It looks like she got kicked. I mean...
Oh, the life that Hayden had been dragged into. That is from our friends at TMZ and Inside Edition. Joining us now is a special guest who has been waiting patiently to speak about Hayden. It's Dylan Novak, a pastor who shared the gospel with Hayden. He is the founder of a evangelical ministry and is a star of Green Room Gospel, his new podcast coming out fall. Dylan Novak, thank you for being with us. I would like you to explain to our viewers and listeners the Hayden that you knew.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for having me. My wife and I, we met Hayden in Monroeville, Pennsylvania back in 2024. And we've been doing this ministry for the past 11 years, taking the gospel to different people in the entertainment industry. Like the previous clip you just showed, this is what we see all of the time in ministry. People searching for something so much more than what this life has to offer, filling their life, filling that God-shaped hole in their heart with the things of this world. And this is the result that sadly happens. And Hollywood is the known but forgotten. They are, we all think about them, we all know who they are, but sadly we as the church oftentimes just graze over them. We either say they're a lost cause, or we say, oh, nobody would ever listen. And we've seen through our ministry many people give their lives to Christ. We've seen an outpour recently of different people in the entertainment industry being outspoken with their faith. And when we met Hayden, it was Still City Con. It's just a Comic Con. It's, you know, a fan meet and greet. And we were able to talk with her for a few moments, and she talked about her daughter. And my daughter at the time, she was 2, about to turn 3. Her daughter was 9 at the time. And she brought up her past, along with some other issues. And there was just such a sad presence. And it's the same presence you see with anybody who is searching for that God-shaped hole in their life, and they're filling it with anything except the gospel of Christ. She was so kind to us. She was so kind to our daughter, and open to listen. Some people we talk to are completely closed off. They don't want to talk. It's very dismissed. She was open, but there was just an overwhelming sad presence.
Host of Naughty But Nice podcast, very familiar with Hayden. He is the author of a brand new bestseller, Queen Elizabeth III, The New American House of Windsor. Rob, Hayden was searching. She was searching for a way to change her life, to have a life with her daughter, to move forward. What did you observe? What do you know of Hayden?
That this was an incredibly talented, generous, kind person who was just riddled with demons. And every time she tried to get her life together, something came along and derailed her. We know about her financial issues. The mistake a lot of people make is they think all famous people are very wealthy. She lived a relatively modest life. She didn't live in a big mansion in Bel Air. She had a small apartment. We see where she was staying in South Carolina. It's not at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. It's at a rented apartment, a luxury apartment, but it's not where Julia Roberts would stay. So I know she struggled with money. I know she struggled with happiness. She felt Hollywood had left her be. This was a child star, and Hollywood has this horrible habit of throwing them aside and finding somebody new. Her career wasn't in a place where she wanted it to be. I was told one of the reasons she wrote her memoir was she wanted the money. She needed the money. She wasn't getting acting jobs. So if you add all that together, it's a very desperate, a very sad, but not that unusual Hollywood story. Very sad.
Dr. Bethany Marshall, not only a renowned psychoanalyst, but the daughter to missionaries who go around the world spreading the gospel. It just breaks my heart to hear Pastor Dylan Novak speaking about Hayden, searching. We're all seekers, right? We're all seeking. But to know that she was searching and seeking the gospel, but before she could find any peace in this world, she died. And it just, all of these leeches sucking her blood, sucking her dry.
She had experienced this from the time she was little. In kindergarten, she was bullied by a teacher and by fellow students for being an actor. This continued throughout middle school. She was addicted at 15 and 16, opioids and stimulants. A stimulant was given to her by somebody she trusted. She goes on to Nashville, and the writers of that show parallel the script with Hayden Panettiere's life. And they give her the script so soon before each taping that she doesn't have a chance to object to it. So her show begins to mimic her addiction, her pregnancy, all of that. And Nancy, you talked about seeking. It is very common for people who are struggling with addiction. And we know she admitted herself to treatment facilities. Nobody had to push her to grow, nobody had to push her to go. So she was seeking God, a higher power, which is a part of addiction recovery, attachment systems, which had been taken away from her from the very beginning. And I see this in my Beverly Hills office all the time. Stars who come in and they don't talk about their careers. They talk about wanting to be loved. They talk about going to church. They talk about their relationships. They talk about their pastor. That's what everybody wants at the end of the day, relationship with God and with others. And one other quick thing, when you're a child actor, your sense of self becomes fused with the camera. That camera holds your identity, and your self-esteem rises and falls on the smiles and frowns of others, which makes you very, very vulnerable to what other people think about you, not what the public thinks, but what your loved ones think about you, which then makes you vulnerable to exploitation. So this was a perfect storm of many, many, many factors. And I wish Pastor, who is here today, could have had much more time with her, because he said that he and his wife sound very loving and like they could have helped take her away from Brian and played a larger role in her life.
2 ambulances arrive at a South Carolina apartment complex. Paramedics run advanced life support on a woman collapsed inside. Neighbors watch from the hallway, phones in hand, already recording. And when it's over, when the CPR stops, when the radios go quiet, both ambulances pull away empty. No patient inside either one, because there was nothing left to transport. That woman was Hayden Panettiere. 9 days later, we still don't officially know why she died. Before we go further, this case involves addiction, documented domestic violence, and the final hours of a young mother's life. Some of what follows is difficult. Watch with that in mind. If this is your first time here, welcome. Drop a comment and tell us where in the world you're watching from. We read everyone. And to everyone who's been with this channel for a while, sharing these videos, leaving comments, hitting subscribe, thank you. You're the reason cases like this one get the scrutiny they deserve. If you're new, subscribe now, because what happened inside that apartment is about to get a lot harder to look away from. August 16th, 2026. A 911 call comes in from a rented apartment in Greenville, South Carolina. Dispatch relays 2 words that will define the next several weeks of headlines: overdose and cardiac arrest. Medics arrive within minutes. CPR is already in progress. By 2:31 that afternoon, Hayden Panettiere, the actress who became a household name playing Claire Bennett on Heroes and Juliette Barnes on Nashville, is pronounced dead at the scene. She was 36 years old, 4 days from her 37th birthday. Within hours, TMZ has the story. Within a day, so does the world. But here's what almost no one reporting this got right. 9 days later, there is still no official cause of death, no toxicology, no ruling on manner of death. 2 men were in that apartment with her. Neither has been charged with anything. And the answer to what actually happened inside that apartment is sitting in a lab, weeks away from being known. Before Greenville, before the Airbnb, before any of it, there was a kid from Palisades, New York, who landed her breakout role at 16. Claire Bennett, the indestructible cheerleader on Heroes. Then Juliette Barnes, the fractured country star on Nashville, a role that would end up mirroring her own life more than anyone realized at the time. Her final project, Sleepwalker, released in January of this year, she starred in it, and she produced it. A woman still building, still working, right up until months before her death. But the public version of Hayden Panettiere was never the full one. In February 2023, her younger brother Jansen died in his New York apartment. He was 28. Cardiomegaly, an enlarged heart, combined with aortic valve complications. She's spoken about what that loss did to her, not just emotionally, but physically. Months where she couldn't leave the house, couldn't dress herself without feeling swallowed by her own clothes, watched herself spiral into what she later called agoraphobia. She didn't hide the rest either. In her own memoir, released earlier this year, and in interviews before it, Panettiere described a private battle most fans never saw coming. Postpartum depression she called extreme hopelessness, an old neck injury that reintroduced her to opioids, alcohol she leaned on to cope. She talked about hitting what she called rock bottom. She talked about giving up custody of her daughter to her ex-fiancé, Vladimir Klitschko, because she knew she wasn't well enough to keep her. This is not speculation. This is what she said, in her own words, on the record, long before August 16th. Which is what makes the timeline of her final weekend so hard to look away from. Friday, August 14th, or the morning of the 15th, reports don't pin the exact hour, Hayden Panettiere arrives in Greenville, South Carolina, with her on and off boyfriend, Brian Hickerson, and his brother, Zach. They check into an Airbnb. Nothing about the trip is publicly framed as unusual. No one reports conflict. No one reports concern. Sunday, August 16th, morning. Zach Hickerson goes to church. It's a normal part of his routine, one he'd later describe without hesitation to reporters. The plan for the day is simple. Lunch, then indoor golf, all 3 of them together. After the service, Zach tries to reach Brian and Hayden. No response. Not unusual on its own, until it keeps not being unusual. Call after call, text after text, long enough that he decides to go check. He arrives at the apartment. Brian is asleep. just waking up by his account. Hayden is unresponsive. What happens in the next 60 seconds is the difference between a headline about a tragic death and a headline about something else entirely. Zach calls 911. Brian, according to his brother's statement, administers Narcan. The two men perform CPR together. Phone still on speaker, dispatch still on the line. The radio traffic is a matter of public record now. A dispatcher's voice, flat and procedural, the words that would end up in newspapers everywhere 12 hours later. Respond Medic 29, Easley Bridge Road. Overdose. CPR in progress. Police arrive. One officer's report describes the scene in clinical terms. Multiple EMS personnel and firefighters performing CPR on a woman who appeared unresponsive. Advanced cardiac life support is attempted. It doesn't work. At 2:31 in the afternoon, Hayden Panettiere is pronounced dead at the scene. The police report lists Brian and Zach Hickerson as the two people present. It does not list a cause. It does not list a manner. Those words, homicide, accident, undetermined, are not on that page because nobody has the authority to write them yet. What the page does confirm is this. A Narcan dispenser was found inside that apartment. Someone brought it there, or it was already there. Someone reached for it, at some point, for some reason. The question that's been sitting unanswered since that Sunday afternoon isn't whether it was used. It's whether it was used in time to matter at all. Naloxone, the drug inside every Narcan dispenser, does one thing. It blocks opioids from binding to receptors in the brain that control breathing. When someone overdoses on substances like fentanyl or heroin, their breathing slows, then stops. Naloxone reverses that, but only within a window. It has to reach the bloodstream, then the brain, before oxygen deprivation becomes irreversible. Sprayed into the nose, it typically starts working within 2 to 3 minutes. If the person is still breathing, still circulating blood, still salvageable when it's administered. That's the science. Here's what nobody outside that apartment can answer yet. When the Narcan found at the scene was used, if it was used, and how far along things already were by that point. A Narcan dispenser doesn't come with a timestamp. It can't tell investigators whether it was administered the moment Hayden became unresponsive, or minutes later, or after CPR had already started, or too late to have done anything at all. Its presence in that apartment confirms only one thing for certain. Someone, at some point, believed an opioid overdose was a real enough possibility to reach for it. It does not confirm an overdose happened. It does not confirm what substance, if any, was involved. It does not confirm timing, dosage, or whether Panettiere had taken anything at all. Toxicology is the only test that can answer those questions, and toxicology results don't move fast. What investigators have right now is a physical object at a death scene, a police report that doesn't speculate, and a coroner's office that has been notably careful not to fill in the blanks the evidence hasn't filled in yet. No official statement has confirmed a drug overdose caused her death. None has ruled it out either. Which leaves one place left to look for answers, the body itself, and what the autopsy did and didn't find. Monday, August 17th. One day after Hayden Panettiere was pronounced dead, the Greenville County Coroner's Office performs the autopsy. Coroner Mike Ellis's office releases its findings in careful, deliberate language, and the first thing they rule out is the thing everyone assumed first. No trauma, no visible injuries anywhere on her body that could explain her death. Whatever happened inside that apartment, it wasn't a struggle, and it wasn't violence that left a mark. Then comes the sentence almost no outlet led with, the one that undercuts the overdose narrative that had already spread across every entertainment site by that Monday afternoon. The coroner's office states directly, there is currently no evidence that Hayden Panettiere consumed illicit substances. Not unconfirmed, not pending, no evidence, as of that finding, at that stage of the investigation. That single line collides with everything reported the day before. The dispatch audio said overdose. The Narcan on the mattress said overdose. And now the body itself, examined by the one office with the authority to say so, says there's nothing yet to support it. An autopsy can only tell you so much. It can rule out physical trauma. It cannot, on its own, rule out or confirm what was in her bloodstream. That requires toxicology. And toxicology takes time no one in Greenville can speed up. The coroner's office is explicit about what comes next. This investigation remains active and ongoing. No further details available for release. Not a conclusion, a pause. Somewhere in a lab, samples from Hayden Panettiere's body are waiting to be tested for substances that, so far, no one has found evidence of at all. The Greenville Police Department remains the lead agency on this case. But days after Panettiere's death, a source confirms to people that the Drug Enforcement Administration has stepped in to assist. That detail alone tells you where investigators' attention has turned. The DEA doesn't typically involve itself in death investigations to determine trauma or mechanical cause. It gets involved when the question becomes where drugs came from, who supplied them, and whether a substance moving through a chain of people led to someone's death. Its presence here is not proof of anything. It's a signal of what direction the inquiry is now pointed. And the answer everyone is waiting on sits behind a bottleneck no department can rush. A representative for the coroner's office tells the New York Post that full toxicology results typically take 8 to 12 weeks to process, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, depending on the lab's caseload and what's being screened for. Panettiere's mother, Leslie Vogel, has told reporters the same range, 2 to 3 months before anyone has a real answer. In the meantime, life moves forward in the one way it can. The coroner's office confirms Panettiere's body has been cleared for release to her family, pending their selection of a funeral home. A woman whose cause of death is still officially unknown is, in the eyes of the law, already being laid to rest. The coroner's office has issued one more statement since, and it's worth hearing exactly as written. This investigation remains active and ongoing. No further details are available for release at this time. Unquote. Not closed. Not stalled. Active. No one has been named a suspect. No one has been charged with a crime. 2 men were in that apartment when Hayden Panettiere died, and as of this recording, neither faces any allegation connected to her death. But one of those 2 men already has a documented history with her, one that exists in police reports and court filings from years before that Sunday in Greenville, and it has nothing to do with what toxicology will eventually reveal. May 2nd, 2019, Los Angeles police arrest Brian Hickerson on suspicion of felony domestic violence. He's released on $50,000 bond the next afternoon. That case is dismissed months later. February 2020, Wyoming. Hickerson is arrested again, this time accused of punching Panettiere in the face. He pleads not guilty. That case stays open. July 14th, 2020. Panettiere files for a restraining order against him. By the time prosecutors finish building their case, Hickerson is facing 8 criminal counts: battery, assault with a deadly weapon, intimidating a witness, and corporal injury to a spouse or cohabitant, stemming from incidents between May 2019 and January 2020. On April 20th, 2021, he pleads no contest to 2 of those felony counts. The other 6 are dismissed as part of the deal. He's sentenced to 45 days in county jail, 4 years of probation, 52 mandatory domestic violence classes, a $500 fee, a 5-year restraining order, and a lifetime firearms ban. He reports to Men's Central Jail that May and serves less than 2 weeks of the sentence. That should have been the end of the paper trail. It wasn't. In 2025, Hickerson is arrested twice more in Los Angeles. Separate incidents, still unfolding quietly while Panettiere's public life moved on without headlines about him. Then this July, he petitions the court to have his 2021 felony convictions reduced to misdemeanors or wiped from his record entirely. He argues he's met every obligation the court set for him. Prosecutors oppose the motion. On August 13, 2026, Judge Olivia Rosales denies it, both the reduction and the expungement. 3 days later, Hayden Panettiere is dead. None of this, not the arrests, not the plea, not the denied petition, has been connected by investigators to what happened in that apartment. Hickerson has not been named a suspect. He has not been charged with anything related to her death. This is simply what the record shows about the man who was asleep in the next room when she stopped breathing. What the record can't show is what was said between them in the years since that restraining order lapsed, or why, after everything, she was still with him the weekend she died. Vladimir Klitschko, her former fiancé and the father of her daughter, broke his silence days after her death. Our family is going through a time of profound shock and grief. She left this world far too soon. Her mother, Leslie Vogel, spoke too, not with anger, but with something closer to resignation. She believes Hayden sadly lost her way and wishes it were different. That's where this stands, a death 9 days old, an autopsy that found no trauma and no evidence, yet, of illicit substances, a Narcan dispenser with no timeline attached to it, a federal agency now quietly involved, a man in the next room with a documented history the court just refused to let him erase, and no accusation tying him to what actually happened. Somewhere in a South Carolina lab, the answer everyone is waiting on is being built one test at a time. 8 weeks, maybe 12. We'll be here when it comes back.